Today is March the 10th, 2017. My name is Karen Neurohr. I'm a librarian at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, and I'm here today to do a Spotlighting Oklahoma oral history interview with Lee Dunn. Lee, thank you for your willingness to participate in this interview today.
Well, thank you for doing it.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in 1960, so that tells you my age. And I was born in Long Island, New York. My dad was in the Air Force, and then he was hired on by American Airlines. We moved from New York to California, and then we moved from California to the Tulsa area. My dad was raised out in the Oklahoma wheat country in Manchester, and he was raised by wheat farmers. My grandparents were immigrant wheat farmers. Let's see.
What year did you move to Tulsa?
We moved to Tulsa in 1968. I was about 8 years old then. And we originally moved to Tulsa, and then we was there for like a year, and then we moved out to Oologah, Oklahoma, which is the birthplace of Will Rogers. And that's where I graduated, and that's where I have a lot of roots.
Okay, so that's the part that feels like home then?
Yeah.
And you have 3 children?
I have 3 children, Aaron, Caleb, and Chase. Aaron is the oldest, and she's a nurse. Caleb is my oldest son, and he's a preacher. And then my youngest son, Chase, is still trying to obtain his computer engineering degree. So, and I have 5 grandkids, and love them very much.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about the I Am Cowgirl Magazine, which you started. So tell me how you got the idea for this magazine.
Well, it was about 2003, and at that time I was working as a buyer for a company in Tulsa. And when you're in the manufacturing industry back, I realized it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it actually was. And women in the manufacturing industry, it's a very male-oriented environment. And I was in the purchasing department, and I had landed some big deals, and I did not get the credit for it. The senior buyer got the credit for it. And so I was really upset that day, and I was driving home, and it was about an hour commute from my work to my home. And in that hour commute, I came up with the idea of the magazine. It was like a God thing. I mean, it truly was. In like 5 minutes, I had the magazine, I had the layout of the magazine, I had the topics, what the magazine was going to cover, and just all in like 5 minutes. That was it. And the main thing for the magazine was it was going to showcase women and their contributions to the Western industry that they have never ever been recognized for. And that was when the idea came. And then in 2007, I moved in with, was getting a divorce. I moved in with my dad into a bedroom that he had that was empty. And so I moved myself in there, and I worked at this point I was doing international law, clearing cargo through exports and imports, clearing cargo through Homeland Security. And so I worked a day job, and at night I would go back there in my little room, and I had my laptop. And I used a TV tray. And I would go back there, and I started doing stories, contacting people, and getting the groundwork for the magazine. And that's when I got the first editor, the first graphic designer, and all of this stuff. And I was working on that laptop on the TV tray back there in my little room. And that's how the first issue sprang up. And that's where it started. And that was in the first issue came out. I started working on that in like probably about June of 2007, and in October of 2007 our first issue came out.
Okay, let's back up just a little bit here. Did you have a background in with horses or rodeo or agriculture in any way?
I was brought up in Oologah, and my dad ran cattle. We had horses, and when I was a young, I did barrel racing and the flags and all that. My brother did show horses, and then my other brother did showed steers. And my grandfather, he was into race horses. He had some race horses. And so I did grow up in, I had a lot of that. I rode a lot of horses, and a lot of different types, quarter horses, Tennessee Walkers, Pasafinos. I mean, I did trail riding. And I also belonged to a group called the Humber Ref Riders, and we did...
Well, tell me about that group. What is that?
They did, it's like square dancing on horses, for entertainment at the rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. It was real dangerous, but, we had a lot of fun doing that.
Was that around in Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm.
And where did you perform? With that
Like
group?
over in, just like in the Tulsa area,
Mm-hmm.
this area. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So were you involved in 4-H or ag in school at all?
No, I was not involved in any of that.
Okay. What about, did you do competitive barrel racing?
I did
Horse show?
local rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did,
Mm-hmm.
local rodeos.
Okay. All right, so you had a little bit of a background with the culture, the
Mhm.
Western culture, and you had the idea for this. Had you changed jobs when you actually moved in with your dad and you were starting to work on this, or were you still at the same
Yes, I
company?
went from purchasing into, one of my customers when I was doing purchasing, or the people that did cleared our cargo through customs, asked me if I'd be interested in going to their side, and learning the trade. And I said yes, and so I did. And it was real easy for me to learn, all the international trade stuff. And I was, not very many people could do imports and exports at the same time, and I could. So, that was, it just clicked with me. I had no problems with it whatsoever. And I did enjoy it because I probably talked to someone in every country around the world. So I made a lot of connections.
What does it take to be able to do the imports and exports?
Well, usually somebody just does imports or somebody just does exports because the laws change on a day-to-day basis. And it's totally different clearing freight coming into the U.S. than it is clearing freight leaving the U.S. So there's just a lot of details, and you have to, and with that, the fines are astronomical. I mean, if you have one period missing off of a document, you can be fined thousands of dollars. So, it's real, very detail-oriented type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And each country that you're shipping to they have their own set of import laws and requirements. So you have to be familiar with each country's what they want, and what they need. So it's nothing is the same, and it's definitely not mundane every day. Doing the same thing over and over. Every day is something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of specialty stuff. The Tulsa Customs, they did recommend me to a lot of people, whenever they were trying to get stuff cleared. And then I did a lot of difficulty stuff, things like people trying to bring in like drugs, if they found something, that was illegal. It could have been drugs, or there was one case where there was monkey blood on an arrow, and you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of different stuff, and I did a lot of foods, alcohol, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any special training, education in your background that helped you with the skills that you needed for this kind of work?
For which one, the international or the magazine?
Both, actually.
Actually, no. I just kind of fell into the international trade stuff, and whenever you go into that, either you're going to get it or you're not going to get it, and you'll know if you're going to get it within 3 to 6 months. And it just, it just clicked for me, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was. I enjoyed it, but it's high stress, very high stress.
Yeah.
And the magazine, I went to Rogers University, and that was my major, was journalism. I never finished, but that was my goal. I was actually my dream was to become the next Barbara Walters.
Oh.
Whenever I went to college, so.
Uh-huh.
But of course, detours.
Things change.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked about, I'm amazed at how quickly everything came to you as far as the idea, the layout. Did you have models in mind, magazine models that you read or enjoyed or anything for this?
No, I always was kind of upset with some of the other major magazines because they never featured women as the, cover page story. And that was really my main goal, was to get those women, as many women as I could, their stories out there, and to, let them be a feature story, because really, if you go back in history, the cowboy wouldn't be the cowboy without the cowgirl behind him. And the cowgirls have never gotten the recognition that they deserve. And so that was my main goal, was to put them in the show, in the spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
and get their stories out there.
Okay, so walk me through the process a little bit of what you had to do to get it started. You said that you were calling people and getting people on board.
We're talking ground zero here. And so I just started calling people and interviewing people, asking people their opinions. I got a lot of contacts with writers, just talking to someone will lead you to someone else, and they'll lead you to someone else, and they'll lead you to someone else. So it was just kind of like a spiral, and it happened real fast. When I decided, I was going through a divorce, and I decided, if I can't be married, I'm going to be a millionaire. So, but that was it. I just started calling people and talking to people, and they would recommend, well, you need to call this person, you need to call this person, or you need to call this person. And so I just did. And everybody I talked to, they were so excited that finally there was going to be a magazine that showcased the cowgirl. Mm-hmm. And so everybody was willing to do whatever they could do to help, and they weren't even asking for payment. They just wanted to get the magazine going, and so that, you know, these women could be showcased. They were just so excited. And that is really, I think that is probably the most amazing part of the whole magazine, is because even the men were, saying, I'll do whatever I can do to help you, because them women, they need to be, you know, their stories need to be told. So that was pretty, and I just kind of feel like it, you know, it was a God thing. God was leading the whole thing, so.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a process in mind of like, well, I need to get writers lined up first, or I need to get graphic design lined up first, or was it all converging at the same time?
It was all converging at the same time. It was overwhelming, but it was a good thing. And so, and at the same time, they had found cancer in me the second time. And so at the same time, I was working my day job, and then I would go to my dad's immediately after work, and I would just start right then. And so I would work on the magazine until about 2 in the morning. And at the same time, I was doing chemo. And so there was a lot going on, but God gave me the strength and the will and the ability to make it through all that. And I think really because of the chemo, I think the magazine was the drive that kept me going. It was tough, mm-hmm. Very tough, but I did it. And, you know, we had a great product for it. Great people, everybody contributed. Everybody was just wanting that magazine to make it, and so everybody was willing to do whatever they could, and nobody got paid.
That's amazing.
Until like the end, you know, whenever we started really mm-hmm. coming up.
Were you selling the ads for it too?
I did everything. I did marketing, I did accounting, I did the editing, I did the layouts, I did everything from A to Z. I was on top of that.
Wow, I'm amazed.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was good.
Yeah. What did you feel was the most challenging aspect early on?
I think it was finances. I poured everything I had. My retirement, I sold almost everything I had, and I dumped every penny I could into that magazine. I believed in that magazine, and I still do believe in it. And then one of my customers that I cleared his cargo through customs for, he got wind of that, and he became a silent partner, donor. I mean, he was just really more of a financial supporter. And so he started helping me financially. And but then of course, you know, the market crashed, and the first thing that goes is marketing dollars, and that's when I, you know, had to, you know, his company was hurting, and so, you know, it was just kind of one of those things that, you know, I just kind of figured, well, God's purpose for that has been, you know, met, so it's time to move on to something else. About killed me. Oh gosh. And I still get upset about it because I still believe in it, you know, and they say that this, this is actually, from what we know, this is the first Western women's magazine ever published. And it also started, we noticed that once we came out with this, and about the third or fourth issue into the magazine, the other Western magazines started featuring women as feature articles in their magazine. So, you know, it did do some good.
Did anything surprise you as you were getting it started?
I think what surprised me the most was the willingness for people to want to do whatever they could without reaping some kind of reward from it, except just to help this magazine be a success. That was probably the most amazing thing that really kind of surprised me. Because usually people want something in return. These people, they were willing to do whatever they could for however long, you know, it needed in order to get that up off the ground.
At any point, did it start to get easier?
It was actually there at the third year mark. It usually takes about 5 years for a magazine to really get out of the red into the black. And we were, at 3 years, we were just coming up, hitting the top of the hump. We had landed some really good marketing deals. And it was really, you know, I had writers in many countries. I had writers, I had photographers, all set up. We did, because the I Am stands for International Magazine of Cowgirls. So we were it was, you know, around the world. We were covering women from all parts of the world. And
what were some of the countries that you had writers from?
Australia. We did a story on a woman in Africa, Italy, I can't really remember, but you know, we were really starting to get a lot of good stuff in there. There's women all over the place that there's so many, you know, if you try to write a story on every one of them, it would take, you know, decades to cover a quarter of them. I mean, there's just so much out there.
When you had that first idea and you were thinking it through all at once, it sounded like, did the title come to you at that time as well?
No, the title, that was kind of a funny story. The title kind of came, my girlfriend and I, she's my best friend, and I was living in a house in Oologah, and I was telling her about this idea. And this was before I had gotten married and, you know, was getting a divorce, so it was probably about 2004. And I told her about my idea, and we were just sitting there throwing names out. Because, you know, from 2003 to 2007, you know, I had a lot of time there, and some of that time I didn't even think about the magazine, you know. This was an idea, and then I went about life. But anyway, we were sitting there, so we were just kind of throwing names out, excuse me, and and I don't know how many names we threw out there. There was a lot. But then this one came up, and I think this one came up after she had left that day, or a couple of weeks later, and that's what it ended up being.
How did you feel when you held the first issue in your hands?
Oh my gosh, that was the greatest feeling.
Is this the first issue on the top there?
This is the first issue.
Uh-huh.
And I actually have the very first printed copy, and I have it in a frame and glassed up. That came off the press, so that's pretty good. But yeah, this is the first issue, and of course there's a lot of trial and error, in doing these, but this one right here, our main story was about Georgie Sicking. She was a cowboy, and she'd tell you she was a cowboy. She's not a cowgirl, she was a cowboy. She's actually an honoree in the Cowgirl Hall of Fame.
Is that in Fort Worth, Texas?
In Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't get a really good picture of her, so we had to modify this so that it was clear, so you could see it. I wanted to use this as the whole cover, but it wouldn't work, so we found this model right here, and she took a picture, and that's how that happened. And then, usually you wouldn't have like a floating head on the cover, but this worked, and at least we got Georgie on the cover there. But she was a really fantastic lady. She passed away here a few months ago, but she was a bull riding, cowboy, ranch working lady. Plus she did cowboy poetry. So it was a really good article that was written up about her, and she's certainly going to be very missed by a lot of people. But anyway, we did a lot of stories, as many stories as we could on women. And the Cowboy Poetry Society took part in this. We did Miss Rodeo America. She was going through cancer at that time, and so she told her story. And we really tried to tell stories that had meaning, maybe inspirational, stories too. So, but we had a lot of, we had Gail Warner. She did the history of barrel racing here. We did a story on the Spanish Mustangs, which that was a really good article on that, plus really great pictures.
Beautiful photography.
Yeah, we had great photographers. We had a great designers, that laid it out. The colors were just really good. And I really wanted something that was gonna look good, feel good, and make you want to come back and read the story again. And so I paid a lot of attention to color, the quality of the paper, and I wish you had a column in the magazine too. So
How did that get started?
I just I wanted, because all of our women, they are involved in horses or cattle, dogs, whatever. And so I felt like it was really important that we had some kind of a column that addressed, subjects, to help women get, if they have questions or something, just, knowledge. I really wanted this to be educational, inspiring, and fun, and so that's what our goal was. You know, we had the WPRA, and then we had a Stall 13, and he's, you know, a local horse expert, so he had to call him in here too. Plus he had a radio show, you know, at the same time. So then we did, you know, some Cowgirl Hall of Fame honors for that year.
You said the Cowboy Poetry Association was it a kind of a partnership?
Well, they did submit some, they supplied some of their writers, you know, and then we published, in every issue we had cowboy poetry, and we called it True Spirit, Reflections of a Cowgirl. So, you know, we wanted to give as much information as we could. And then later on, we started having a history column where we would feature some woman that could, you know, had influential history in the Western industry. So, and there's so much history out there, people just are not aware of, you know, women that have contributed in shaping the West to where it is today.
I see that you had even added a food section.
Yes, we added food, which, you know, I'm all about food recipes. But in this one right here was kind of like our Christmas for 2008. And in here we had some of our people, you know, we submitted our favorite recipes, this was a fun issue. And a lot of people really enjoyed that too. I even put my grandmother's apple cake recipe in here because it is probably the best apple cake I've ever had. But this little girl right here, she came over from Australia. She's a real big country western singer in Australia. And so we wanted to kind of help her, you know, maybe get her name out there. She came over to Nashville, really sweet girl, but her mom is a champion barrel racer, and her dad is a roper over in Australia, and they're champions over there in Australia. So,
What's her name?
Her name is Shea Fisher. She's real cute. I hope that, you know, she's a big, huge star over there in Australia, but she was trying to get, you know, taken off over here. I don't know if she ever did. Kind of went underground for a while, but she's a really cute girl. Has a great voice too. But, you know, so we did a lot of stuff. These girls right here are, let me see. I don't know what issue it was, but anyway, these girls right here, they're the American Cowgirl Chicks, and they do trick riding. They're a group of girls out of Texas, and they do trick riding. Well, we did a story on them, but then they went to Sweden for the International Horse Show, and they performed in Sweden. So our photographer went to Sweden and photographed them over there doing the show. And so, you know, that was kind of fun. Those girls are really good. One of the girls is blind. She's a trick rider, and she was blind. But they do a lot of stuff here in the U.S., so, you know, you want to check out their programs.
What issue was that?
This issue right here, the printers made a mistake and they used the wrong paper, so, you know, it has a thicker cover on it. But this issue right here is the January-February 2009. And in this one, we also did a article on a lady in Egypt. She does trekking over there. You know, you can rent horses and she'll take you, you know, to go trekking and stuff. So that was kind of fun too, but, you know, that was a pretty cool stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're real talented.
The quality of the paper is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in the magazine.
I think that makes a big difference. You can have real thin, cheap paper, which I think some of when the economy crashed, you know, the magazines either went under or they did cut costs. And it does hurt, I think it does hurt the overall looks, you know, of the magazine or the article, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive. And I really wish that, you know, we could have kept going because we were well on our way. But, and you know, if something happens and financially, you know, I'll probably start it again. But,
Did you start off by selling subscriptions? Did you?
no,
before it was
I
out?
started off, what I did is I contracted with a company that handles distribution. So, you know, like getting your magazine into certain stores like Barnes and Nobles and, you know, those kind of stores in the airports. Just on any kind of magazine rack, you know, that they could. And that's how it started. And then once they got out there, then, and it was really a great thing because women basically promoted the magazine. We didn't have to really do a whole lot of promoting because women were telling other women, and then they were telling other women, they were telling other women. So, you know, it really cascaded really fast, very fast, faster than I thought it would. I mean, it was...
How many issues were in your first run did you print?
I think I've printed 1,500.
1,500?
I think that's what it
And
was.
then did that change?
Oh my gosh, yeah, because then we ended up, by the time I stopped printing, we were in over 1,500 stores across the U.S. I had 42,000 readers, and that's reader subscribers.
42,000 reader subscribers?
Yes.
And were you still managing all of
Yes.
those details?
Yes, I was.
Were you still working?
No, I had finally quit like about a year. In the first of 2009, I quit my other job, and I was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was just at the point where, you know, I knew I needed to get help, but then, you know, things changed. So, and we were in about 14 different countries. Our magazine was.
And that was all through the distribution?
No, I did that
Oh,
myself.
you did that yourself?
Mhm.
Well, how did that work? How did you find where to take it?
You know, it's just, you just gotta,
Go.
you know, I had contacts over there, so they, you know, they were, you know, talking about the magazine, but to really, and then I would send magazines to them, and then they would, you know, I mean, pass them out, and then that brought in subscribers, and then, you know, it just kind of,
Were you printing it only in English?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because we were not big enough yet to, you know, I mean, I was talking to people about getting it translated, but we hadn't reached that point yet.
Going back to your education at Rogers State and you were studying journalism, did any of that help you did any particular classes or anything
No.
help you at all? No?
No. This was, you know, I was more, I mean, yes, I did do editing until I got an editor. And even then I edited because, you know, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get sued. But I just really, law is my, where I really grab onto, the laws. And it's just knowing, and then, of course you have to have lawyers. So if I had any questions, I would contact my lawyers. I had about 7 lawyers, to make sure we were on the up, and above the.
What kinds of things does a publisher have to worry about the most? What would be some of the top things?
I'm just going to say, my biggest thing was I just wanted to make sure that our readers was getting some kind of inspiration out of this book. And I know a lot of people say you need to leave God out of it, but I didn't leave God out of it because this is God. This is God's making. He just used me, as a tool to get whatever it is he wanted out of this. Somebody out there needed a certain story, to help them make it through whatever challenges they were getting through. And it kind of gave hope. It gave hope to a lot of women, thinking, my gosh, finally, we're going to be recognized. So I really don't take a lot of credit for this. It was really, that's God right there. Because I was just a little old nobody, working a job and barely making it day to day, raising my kids. And he just kind of said, phew, there it is, let's go get it. He provided all the people that helped in this. It wasn't really me.
Did you have anything going as far as an online presence or social media presence when you first started?
I got online, and I've always been one. I just believe you can do anything you want to do. You just got to put your mind to it, and you got to want to do it. And so I got online, and I bought a little web site, package, and I went in there and I kind of made up a little bit of stuff. And we actually got to the point where I hired a professional. And we had the most amazing website. Oh my gosh, it was just great. She did a fantastic job on that. And we had started to put some of the stories on there, and we were, thinking about doing an online, magazine because some people like to hold it and some people just, like to look at it online. But that didn't ever happen because we had to, shut printing down. But we had, man, it was just really a spectacular. Yeah, she did a great job.
Were you having it printed in Oklahoma?
I had it printed in Kansas and Missouri. I talked to some people in Oklahoma, but it was more expensive, here in Oklahoma. So unfortunately, it wasn't in Oklahoma. It was Kansas and Missouri.
What was it like finding stories?
Very easy. Very easy. I had a lot of friends that are writers anyway in the Western industry. And, women, and just the women, our subscribers, they would call in and say, hey, you need to write a story about this lady, or write a letter. You need to write about this lady. That was the easiest part of the whole thing, was finding women to do stories on.
Okay, I noticed that you had some contributors when I looked through some of the issues before the interview today that were with you. It looked like pretty much every step of the way.
Mhm.
Would you tell me a little bit about some of them and your connections with them? BJ Ripper?
Okay, he's the stall 13, and he's actually from Bixby, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And he's known as a very good, he was a horseshoer. That's his trade job. But he also had a radio show, and he also gave advice. I mean, he's an expert on horses. That guy knows everything there is to know about a horse, let me tell you. And so he was right there from the beginning.
Rhonda, Sedgwick, Stearns?
Rhonda is a Cowgirl Hall of Fame honoree, and she's a known writer. She's written a lot of articles, a lot of stories. She's a really good friend of mine now. It was kind of funny because a man saw the magazine, and he called me up and he said, "Hey, you need to call this lady." And so I got her number and found her and called her, and we hit it off just like that. And she was in it from the beginning to the end, and she is a lot of people know who she is. She played the organ at the rodeos for Clem McSpadden.
Clem McSpadden, the famous
Clem.
Clem.
He's the one that wrote the Cowboy Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, she knows a lot. A lot of people know her. Her husband, Bill Stearns, he was a champion bronc rider. He passed away a few years ago, but they are very well known in the cowboy industry. She does a lot of cowboy poetry, and she's written a lot of books. And
Diane Tribbett?
Diane, she is from Minnesota, and she just kind of happened. She called me one day and said, "I really want to be your editor. Can you please, She didn't have any experience at it, and she ended up being a really good editor. So,
Who else stands out to you that was there quite a ways through?
well, OSU was there from the beginning, pretty much the beginning. The cowboy poetry people, they have check out their website because they have some really good poets on there.
Are they still based in California?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Jan Swan Woods. She was our comedy. We even had cowgirl humor. And she is a very funny lady. She actually has books that she sells, and we love her. We're still really good friends. Who else? The O'Reillys, they are this is what they are. They're the Long Riders Association. And they write books and stories of people that do long horse trekking. We're talking thousands of miles. And they go in and tell their stories and, all of that. So they're a good, they supplied quite a bit of, few stories for that.
Where are they from?
I don't really remember. They were really kind of from all over, big European people. But they did have a place here in the U.S. and I want to say like Kentucky or Tennessee or someplace, but they were really kind of overseas type people. And then we had let me see, then we started doing Then we had Mary Zeifer. She started doing our recipes, each month. And her husband Randy was one of our photographers, and he was a really great photographer, and she was a great person. And I mean, we always just had we had so many. And then we started doing a gardening there. I think it was like at the end of 2008. We started doing some gardening articles, having a garden section every month. And that was because, our women are country and they like to garden. I like to garden too, so we had we hired some people, a guy out of Arizona actually, to do a gardening section, and that was real big. And then we just had like a section where we started doing women's health, topics, and that was a big success too. So we were just trying to do as much as we could, knowledge and inspirational, healthy, country living kind of stuff.
Were you getting feedback from readers in the form of letters or emails?
Oh, I don't know how many thank yous. Women would send in thank you cards, or just little, when they would send in for their subscription, they would say, they would just write little notes. Thank you so much for starting this magazine, and
Do you still have those?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do have those. I have some of those.
Tell me about the graphic design. It's beautiful.
I had a great graphic designer. Her name is Janie, and she's out of Bixby. She came on board willing to do it for free until, we got up and were able to start paying people. But yeah, she did a great job. And when she couldn't do it any longer, it was about the last two, these two right here. She wasn't able to do it anymore, because that's when the economy started crashing. Then I had a young lady from that was in school, going to graphic designing school. She came in and did it, just for the experience, alone was good for her, but she was Diane's daughter, and so she did like the last two issues, and she did a really good job. So, but yeah, we just had, and it was unfortunate because at this time, we could start seeing, the light. But, things happen and you have to move on, so.
It seemed to grow in size page-wise.
Yep, we were really starting to get some advertising, some really good advertising, and we got some. It was around this time we had just landed a big contract with Harlequin Romance. And then, we had to shut it down.
What was that for?
Ad marketing.
Oh, marketing.
Marketing there, because see, they write Western novels too, so, and that's what they were going to advertise.
Mm. Do you remember, how many were you up to as far as printing? You started with 1,500 and how did that
I
evolve?
started with 1,500.
You laugh about that now.
I was like, oh my gosh, 1,500 magazines. But that was like exploded. But like I said, we were, by the time we quit printing, we had 42,000 readers and subscribers. And then the magazines that, went out to the stores. And
How many would typically go in the store? On the rack?
usually about 5. 5 to 10.
Mhm.
And then if they needed more, they, would.
So you were printing extras and keeping some on hand?
Yeah, because, when we would go to shows and stuff, I mean, we still went to shows and,
What do you mean by that?
well, like like in Jackson, Wyoming, they have a Western Design Conference every year, so we would be a sponsor for that and go up there, and then just rodeos and just get booze and stuff and just go.
And you were doing all of that too?
Yes. I know I'm an overdoer.
Oh, goodness.
But I'm telling you, doing this and working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, wasn't as hard as going to my 8 to 5 day job, because I believed in this, I loved this, and this was something that I just truly knew this was my purpose in life. So even though it was hard and, it just didn't seem like, I was really working. I was creating something. So, and I met so many great people,
Do any particular photographs stand out to you?
Well,
Or let's do photographs and then we'll do stories.
okay. I had a friend of mine from Oologah. She was doing photography, and I took her, and she did a great job photographing Donna McSpadden. I mean, you just couldn't get any better pictures than that. I mean, look at that. That's a great picture. Great.
Is this Debbie White?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a great picture, and Debbie did a fantastic job. She took several pictures of Donna, and then we did, then my other photographer, Randy, I mean, he did some great photographs too. Lori Merritt, she wasn't hired by us, but she donated photographs that she had done. Well, she didn't donate, I mean, I paid for some of them, but some of them she donated. But she did some great pictures too. I mean, look at Deanne on her horse. That's a great cover right there.
Is.
That's a great cover. And this right here, Jamie Williams. Now she was doing a project on the American Cowgirl, and she's a photographer. So these photographs are hers that she, that were in her collection. But she took some great pictures of these women that are, and she has a website too. But, I mean, just absolutely fantastic, photography. And that's one thing I mean, look at this little lady right here. Isn't that a great photo? Mm-hmm. And that was really something. And this little girl right here with her dog, that is so, I really, that's probably the #1 highest requirement that I had, was the photographs had to be, spectacular. So we didn't really have too much in here. I mean, I love this picture right here. That is really good. Was photography had to be, something that people, they're going to look at that and go, wow, look at that. So that was a big thing for me. I mean, and this, Randy took this picture of Molly. Molly is the first black ranch woman in Texas. Her family was. And she's a great, great lady. She does a lot of, she's actually in the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. And she does a lot of history with the kids they have a little history museum. They bus in kids from all over, you know, to go through it, and so I really like her, but that was really something, you know, that I was pretty, I mean, this is a great picture of Susie that our photographer took, you know. So I was really, photos was definitely, you know, I mean, that's what brings a person to a magazine anyway, as far as I'm concerned. If you don't have good pictures, you know, people aren't gonna sit there and want to read the article, so.
Talk about this, the one that's on top right now.
This is Patty Eckman, and she has a great story. Her daughter had cancer, and so it's kind of, you know, her story about getting through that process. But at the same time, she is an excellent artist. And her, this right here is some of her artwork, but they make their own paper, and all of this is made out of their paper. And every little detail, she is into every little detail, even the thread in a button. And her talent is just so amazing. It just, I mean, it blew me away. And the first time I heard about her was she had her stuff at some of her artwork at the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. And I had gone to a ceremony, you know, one of their inductee programs, and they were showcasing her artwork, and it is just stunning. I mean, some of her stuff can be as long as this table right here. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. And if you, and I urge anybody to check out her artwork, because everything she does is made out of the paper that she makes.
Wow.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. And super nice lady. She, you know, that's a hard things to lose your child. And but she has a really good, you know, inspirational story. She's very family connected, so she's a good person. I know I get kind of choked up every once in a while.
That's okay. Were there any stories that you had in the works that you wanted or planned to do but weren't able to get around to?
There's just millions of stories, you know, I wanted to do. And yes, we were trying to, we had lots of stories in the making that, you know, we weren't able to get published. But, you know, God's a miracle worker. So one of these days, maybe they will. We were actually, you know, working on I really wanted to showcase women that didn't have, that weren't already famous. Some people I did though, like Susie, you know, she has a history of,
Susie Mcintyre?
Susie Luke, well, she was known as Luke Sr. then, but you know, her story is she was in a physically abusive relationship, and so that's what, you know. So this story right here, there was a benefit to it, and you know, hopefully it helped, you know, somebody else that might be going through the same thing. So, but so there was some people we were working on. Interviewing Barbara Bush, you know. Barbara's really good with, she's very into children, you know, and women, so I felt like she was gonna, you know, have a good story to maybe help somebody else. But that's really what our mission was, God, and maybe helping, you know, other women that were, you know, going through some kind of a difficult situation. And of course, you know, happy stuff too, so.
Did you have an articulated purpose or mission statement?
I did have a mission, and I think I wrote it in one of these. I don't remember which one.
I remember your first issue had a little
Oh, maybe
piece
that was
that
it.
you wrote. I think I saw on maybe page 4.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking.
Dear
of.
readers, I wrote, as I sit back and contemplate the last 4 years of working hard to get this magazine into your hands, which, you know, I spent that time getting familiar with the publishing laws, you know, and really finding out what all it was going to take to really do this. And that was a lot of research there. My thoughts can only be grateful for all the wonderful people that have blessed me and believe in this publication so much that the majority of them work for little or no payment in return. We all believe it is time for women to be recognized and honored for our role in modern society. Each one of us has a story, and the stories of Western women are bountiful. The sacrifices that each woman has made through the years provides positive role models for generations of women to come, a whisper of hope and a source of encouragement for our fellow sisters around the globe. I hope you will join us in making this publication your magazine by interacting with us and personalizing it to fit your needs. We are open to all suggestions, comments, and criticism. Welcome, ladies. Settle up, grab those reins, and let's. Hit the trail. You're entering cowgirl country. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You have an amazing legacy there. Very amazing. Are there any Oklahoma women whose stories need to be told that come to
Oh,
mind?
there's thousands of them.
Can you name a few?
Well, we wrote about Donna. She was there. There's a.
Has anyone ever written about Reba and Susie's mom?
No, you know, we were working our way up there. It's just like I said, there's just so many women that have so many, you know, inspiring stories. And it's hard to, and that was probably the hardest thing, was trying to pick out which one to do next. You know, it wasn't hard getting the stories, it was hard picking out the one to do next. Because there's just so many of them.
How in the world did you figure that out?
Well, what I did is I just, I would talk to all of our people that, you know, were the closest, you know, and then we would just discuss, okay, well, let's do this story, let's do this story. We'll do this story next, and the next issue, you know.
Were you trying to have a variety in some way?
Yeah. And we did have a variety. We had Susie's, you know, story about, you know, domestic violence. We had Basha. She was a world trekker, and she went on thousands of miles of, you know, trekking journeys all over the world. I mean, Russia. I mean, everywhere, in places you wouldn't want to go. And so she's an amazing girl. We had Jamie Williams. You know, she was just her purpose was kind of like mine. You know, there's so many women out there that don't have their stories, you know, told. So she was trying to get some of those out. Then you have, you know, the American cowgirl chicks. You know, they're trick riding, and then each one of them has their own personal story, you know, of, you know, tribulations that, you know, they're trying to get through. And then Georgie Sicking and how she fought her way in the world of the cowboy and ranching and, you know, trying to prove that she could do anything, you know, a cowboy could do, and she pretty much did that. Then you have Donna McSpadden, you know, super great lady, and, you know, they did so much stuff for the college, you know, rodeo and, you know, this area, and just, you know, the rodeo family, you know, period.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, then you have Molly Taylor, first African American to have a ranch in Texas. You know, and she's real big into helping kids and getting scholarships for kids, and, you know, making sure the history is, you know, out there and told. And Hattie Eckman, you know. And then we have other stories inside, you know, that are short stories too. So, you know, there's just so much out there.
Okay, let's get, any other Oklahoma women come to mind?
Donna, yeah, I have a friend, Donna. She has lupus, and she's a big little cowgirl. It's because she's shorter than I am, so. But she started in this area a Christian horse club for the youth, and so, you know, plus she's done other things. So, you know, there's a story right there in this area alone right here. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot in Oklahoma. There's a lot of stories that haven't been told out there yet. So,
do you have connections with the Cowgirl Hall of Fame in Fort Worth?
I don't really have connections with them. I've been to some of their, you know, inductees with Rhonda, and but I don't really, you know, whenever I started doing this, everybody was your best friend. Everybody was your best friend, even though you didn't know them, they was your best friend. So I really had to kind of stay neutral, you know, not show favoritism like the WPRA or the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, or, you know, I really had to kind of stay neutral, so I didn't. And, you know, and that's why I said I'd probably make some people mad, you know, but I didn't, I wasn't in this to gain fame. Mm-hmm. I was in this to let these ladies get the fame that they deserved. So.
Okay, so you and I, I had one question. Let me go back. So you had a team of people you were working with. So how were you all communicating? Was it telephone calls? Were you emailing each other? How did you work together?
Yeah, telephone and email. Whenever you're getting these ready to print, you upload them. Well, the graphic designers, you know, of course, everybody would turn in their stories, and not already laid out or anything. They would turn in their stories, then everything, pictures to go with those stories, and then you would send. They would send it to me, and I would, you know, kind of run through them real quick just to make sure, you know, that's what I wanted. And then I would send it all to Janie, our graphic designer, and then she would go through, and she would, you know, kind of, her and I both would go through and lay out each page, you know.
Together?
Yes,
at
together.
the same place?
And then she would take it and she would do her thing to it. You know, I would say, okay, let's put this story on these 2 pages, these pictures, you know, lay them out however, you know, it's going to work out. So she would, and, you know, with the the advertisements. I mean, we would, get all that. Let's put this advertisement here, this one here. And of course, people would pay for a certain page placement anyway for advertisements. So those were the easy ones. And the advertisers, 99% of them would make their own ads and send us their ads. If they wanted us, we could do their ad, but we were going to charge them for it. But usually they already had their own marketing, team. So that was the easy part. And then, so then we would just go through and find pictures and, it's a long process.
How much time does it take
A lot of time.
to lay out one?
A lot of time. It takes a lot of time to lay one out. Because you would lay it out, then she would do her thing to it. Then you would lay it out again to make sure it looked good. And then any changes, she would make the changes. Then you would lay it out again and, make your changes. And then in the meantime, your editor is editing the stories, making sure grammar's right, making sure nobody is being mentioned, or there's so many specifics in writing your stories. You can't say something about somebody unless you have, concrete evidence is true, so you have to go through and make sure all that stuff is, if somebody's name was mentioned, then you'd have to go and get permission from that person, to say, yes, you can use me in this story, so there's a lot. There's a lot to it.
You mentioned that you were teaching yourself about the legal side of it the first few years before you actually got it up and going. How did you do that? Were you reading books? Were you looking online?
I was reading books, looking online. I was going to libraries, checking, out the laws.
Oh, what libraries did you go to?
I went to, like the Tulsa library, places like
the
that.
law library?
And then I was also getting my lawyers lined up. And they, helped a lot, of course, because they're publishing lawyers. So, between them and me doing my own research and stuff.
If somebody came and said, Lee, I'm thinking about starting a magazine, what advice would you give them?
Make sure you know your publishing laws. That is the key. Number one, make sure you know the laws on everything there is in publishing, because people are so happy, and it only takes one person to destroy your dream. So just make sure you know your publishing laws. It's just like, this name right here. I was going to just call it Cowgirl, and I went in to try to trademark Cowgirl. Well, Cowgirl is an ordinary word, and you can't trademark that. So that's whenever I came back and I thought of this I Am Cowgirl. Well, then you can trademark that because it's not ordinary. But Cowgirl, you can't trademark that word.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So anyway, I came up with I Am Cowgirl, and that's not, something people would write in a sentence every day, so.
It stands out.
Right.
What about your rights statement in the magazine? It seemed like it maybe changed a little bit. Did you tweak it a few times?
Yeah, we probably tweaked it a few times. Yeah. Yeah, you want to make sure you have that in there. And that was supposed to be right there. But I don't see it there. Oh yeah, reproduction of the magazine in whole or in part. If the Postal Service, we are not responsible for return or loss. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have your rights in there too. Make sure, that's why I said you just need to make sure you have all of your publishing, you know what you're doing. And get some lawyers, you know. Get some lawyers, and if you ever in doubt, then they're there to protect you. So I had really great lawyers there. There are some people here in Tulsa at the publishing firm. So
Okay, as I mentioned when we first started, the Oklahoma State University Library archives will have one copy of each issue that you are donating.
right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm just excited that these women's stories are always going to be available for people to read about them. That is, that means more to me than anything. Because they deserve it. They deserve it. It's not about me, it's about them.
And what are your thoughts on the digitizing? Are they going to be digitizing
That's
online?
fine. That'd be great too, because more people would have access to it. So that just means their stories is going to be, you know, read by more people. So
Well, we appreciate your generosity in doing that. One of the focuses of our archives are women's stories, Oklahoma women, and that goes back a ways. So one of the areas that we particularly collect in are women of the Dust Bowl, and those stories of women out in the Panhandle.
oh
I don't
yeah.
know if you knew that.
Actually, Rhonda Stearns, she wrote a book about Ms. Mack. Have you heard of her, Ms. Mack? She's actually out there in the Panhandle, and she's actually the first woman to ever compete in jumping. And the first time, and of course that jumping was done in Canada, but she went to Canada, and she was out there just helping work horses and stuff, and one of the guys couldn't ride, so they asked her to, if she would take his place, you know, and all the men were thinking, yeah, well, you know, she's not going to win, and she won. And so she started competing after that in the men's jumping. Well, the men got mad, and that's when they started women's jumping, so that she couldn't compete against the men anymore. That is hilarious.
That is.
And that's how women's competition in jumping started.
Oh. I'll have to
So
look
see,
that
there's
up.
another story we
There it
wanted
is.
to do, but
Uh-huh.
that cracks me up every time I think about it.
Looking back, is there anything you would do differently?
Probably change the timing to where, you know, it didn't hit the economy crash. And that way, you know, it would still be out there. No, I don't think I would. Maybe, I think what I did, probably the worst thing I did is I made promises that I couldn't keep. And the promise was to pay these people for their work whenever the magazine became a success. And that is one thing that I do regret. That I wasn't able to thank them properly, you know. And that, you know, I made a promise that unfortunately I couldn't keep, so that's, and I'll carry that until the day I die. Because they are great people. Everybody says, you know, you didn't have any control over the economy, but still.
I don't like making promises I can't keep. So if I do win Publishers Clearinghouse or anything like that, I will be sending out some checks.
When did you realize that your last issue was going to be your last issue?
You know, I started thinking about that probably about 3 issues into the end. That was when the economy really started to crash. And it was getting harder for me to get the funds to do the printing.
So you had to come up with that up front, kind of?
Well, you know, yes, because every business was hurting, and so they wanted their money up front, which I don't blame them, you know, I just don't blame them. And so that was when it was really starting to get, you know, if you can't print an issue.
Is that your major expense?
Yes, oh my gosh, yes, printing is, expensive. And of course, you know, and that was whenever I started thinking, well, you know, I need to not use such good paper, you know, make some changes, but still.
Did you ever change the paper?
I didn't change the paper. I was starting to think about it. The only thing that changed on this one was the printers made a mistake and they used the wrong cover, you know, paper. But
Did you have to eat that cost?
no,
Oh.
that wasn't my fault. That was their fault.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, whenever I had already started talking to the printers about, you know, well, let's see what it would look like on this paper or this paper or this paper. And I had started, but it was, you know, the economy just crashed like so fast. It was like unbelievable how that just, bam.
Did your cost change, or was it the same the whole time? What you're selling it for?
Well, your cost changes because you're printing more issues. So, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, you know, $10,000, $15,000.
Oh, I mean, what you were selling it for, what it was being sold for. Did that change ever?
No.
Mhm.
It was at $4.99 in the U.S., $6.99 in Canada, and then what we charged people more money to send it overseas. If it was a subscription, we would cover our cost in, you know, sending it overseas. But you know, a lot of times I would just ship a box overseas to some of, you know, connections, and then they would just kind of pass them out. So, you know, I didn't charge people for that, but if it was a subscriber, then we would cover the cost. They would have to cover the cost for that. Because we didn't just send it like this, you know, like you do in the U.S. I mean, it had to go into an envelope, you know, otherwise it would have never made it.
So your barcodes on them, is that
Uh-huh,
another
barcode.
cost?
Yeah, it has, and, you know, USA.
Yeah, it's really some great paper.
Yeah, this was the mistake one.
The mistake one.
Yeah. I didn't like that feeling. It felt more
Yeah.
like a
Cardstock.
program,
Yeah.
you know, that you would get at a football game or something. I like the feel of this one right here. I mean, it was still thick, but it didn't feel like a program.
Mm-hmm. It has a really nice sheen to it as well. I know there's differences in paper with that too. So,
Yeah.
were the covers different from the inside
Yeah.
pages?
There is a difference.
As far as the weight.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we had started a group up in Kansas
they had started the Women's Ranch Rodeo Association. And I love those girls.
Tell me about that.
They are just so fun and so country and just, say it like it is, and that's, kind of the way I am. But so we started a column for them just to help promote the Women's Ranch Rodeo Association.
WRA?
Women's Ranch Rodeo.
Oh.
WR. Here, let me find.
WRRA?
And I just love them. They are just a great group of girls. They worked really, really hard in getting that started. And the reason why they started that is because women aren't allowed to, But there was one thing in here that we did, and it was my idea. But anyways, the Women's Ranch Rodeo Association, and what they've done is they started a women's ranch rodeo where women can compete in ranching, and it's actually taken off now pretty good. I heard they got up into Wyoming and South Dakota, so they're really kind of, stretching their things out. But this right here, when my graphic designer sent this to me, and we had this picture right here of Bobby, I told Janie, I said, right underneath that, tough enough to wear mud. So she did that. And I had more calls on that little statement right there going, oh my gosh, we love that little statement. Tough enough to, because everybody says tough enough to wear pink. Well, we're tough enough to wear mud.
That's good.
So, but I really like these people. These girls they worked real hard and, getting their association out there. And this Mike Donnell, he helped them. There were so many. I had women contacting me from all over the world. There's a lot of women out there that likes to bull ride. A lot more than people realize. And unfortunately, the women's Professional Rodeo Association, they've done a lot of good for women, but they are really kind of stuck on like 2 events. And that association was started to give women equal opportunity to ride the bulls, ride the broncs, do the stuff that they were not allowed to do in the men's rodeo. And so I had a lot of women calling me from Australia, all over the place, saying, we really want some place to ride bulls. And so this Mike guy, he was trying to promote a women's bull riding, competition to where women could come in and ride bulls and broncs in their own competition. And I really hope, I had hoped that he had gotten that started, but with the economy crashing, you just couldn't get the sponsors and stuff. So I really hope someday that the Women's Professional Rodeo Association, that they will really start sponsoring, that type of thing, because I think they would be amazed. I have lots of friends that are women and they want to ride bulls, so maybe someday they can bring that in and make the money like the guys do. Because I'm telling you what,
watching a woman ride a bull is entertainment. They can do it just as good as the guys can.
Is there anything that I haven't asked that you would like to share for the interview?
I don't really know of anything. No, I think you kind of covered it all.
How did your family feel about this venture?
They were my dad was very supportive. Yeah, my family was. You know, in my family, my dad and I, we're the country, you know, horse riding, you know, cow kind of people. Him and I are close, you know, pretty close, but I don't think and I'm not saying this, you know, because to badmouth my dad, but he was so amazed that I could pull something like this off. And it wasn't because he didn't think I could do something. It was just, I never talked about doing a magazine, you know. So it was a really surprise that, you know, this was something I had always dreamed of. I never shared that with anybody, so.
You did?
Yeah.
It was something you had dreamed of?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, I want to be the next Barbara Walters, but, you know. This is better. So, but yeah, they were real supportive. Everybody was real excited about it.
That's good. Do you keep in touch with some of the people that you have stories on?
Yeah, I do. I keep in touch with a lot of people. You know, whenever I had to shut it down, it was a death.
Mm.
It was a death. And I still feel that. Yeah. Because when you put everything you have into something, and you know it's something good, and you don't have the means to keep it going until you can get through the, you know, the hard part of it. You know, people start businesses all the time, and it takes a lot of money to get them going until you can get past. They say 5 years on a magazine, and we had made it 3.
Mm.
So, and I wasn't a rich girl. I pulled money out of my, you know, pocket. I mean, you know, I was making $40,000 a year, supporting 3 kids, you know, so, and that's what I started this on.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I'd do it again.
You would?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
would,
Mm-hmm.
most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever, which I don't know, that's, I mean, you know, for that to happen is really gonna be another God thing. But I would not bring it back as I Am Cowgirl. You know, I think this right here has its own story. And this right here is history. Just because it is the first Western women's magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of how it was started on a shoestring budget and how fast it grew in popularity, I think it needs to stay right where it's at. But I would start another magazine to showcase women and call it something different.
I hope you do.
Well, I hope that would be great,
Maybe.
wouldn't it? Maybe.
If
Or
God-
maybe even help somebody else get one started. You know, I would be all for that.
Mhm.
They do have a Cowgirl Magazine out there, and I think that's great, but I think what women really want is real life stories, not on everyday celebrities that people already know about. And that's why this took off so big, is because these are real people living real cowgirl lives every day.
You've talked about your faith a lot. It's a big part of your life.
Huge. Especially right now. I'm in my 3rd round of cancer, and this one is the biggie, the life-threatening one. So, without God, what is there?
Thank you so much for sharing your story with me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting these women's stories live on.
I'm honored to even be a part of this at all.
Thank you.
I am. I don't know how this all came together like it did. In some ways, but I feel very blessed and honored with your gift to the library and with your story, and I think that other people are going to get a lot out of your story.
Well, I hope so. I just, hope they get inspiration and, maybe some kind of hope through a story in one of the magazines. And that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Hope.
What do you want to tell women everywhere?
Don't give up on your dreams. It's scary to go after something you really believe in, but if you really believe in it, go after it. Whatever it takes. As long as it's guided by God.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.